Welcome all to the Node. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and joining me today, as always, is David. And we'd like to welcome our guest, XRP Mickle. Very much appreciate you coming on, brother.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really look forward to the discussion, and I love stuff like this. It's really good to get people out of their comfort zone and have some back and forth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was talking to Mickle kind of before we went live, and just explaining kind of what we're about here at the Node. And we aren't here to hype or FUD any project. We are here, and that's why we cling so tightly to having to cite sources. You know, if you present something as an opinion, then you need to state it as such. If you are stating something as a statement of fact, you need to cite a source, so that people can go and look at that source and they can, verify that what you're saying is true. So that's what we're about here. We're not trying to FUD any project. We just want people to be fully educated on the pros and cons of every project, and whatever they choose to invest in is none of our business. You can invest in whatever you want. If it's a meme coin, if it's XRP, if it's Canton, whatever it is. We're just here to educate you so you know what you're investing in. So with that, let's introduce Mickle's socials real quick. Let me pop over here and add David. So if you want to find Mickle, he does XRP content mostly. Is there anything else that you like to focus on, or?
I do a lot of macro stuff as well, and tech, but mainly focused on this account, specifically XRP.
Okay, perfect. All right, so if you want to find him, it's at XRP Mickle. And oh, good. What's up?
Yep, no, that's perfect.
Oh, okay, cool. And then if you want to find him on YouTube, it is at Mickle XRP, so just reversed.
And yeah, I wish they were both available at the time, but unfortunately the account copycats got me on that one.
Yeah, they got us too. We're always dancing around adding underscores and stuff like that. But so yeah, this is where you can find his content. If you want to find out, his take on XRP, this is a great place to go and look. And then if you want to find us, you can find us on X at the Node_network, and you can find us on YouTube at the Node Network, all one word. And you can find our official homepage at thenode.pro. And this is where we offer all of our free content. So our DeFi University, if you want to learn about crypto and investing in DeFi, this is where we have all of the free content. It's structured. There's tests, quizzes, community. We have free community here where you can come in here, ask questions, chat. And again, we don't care what you're invested in. We're not here to tell you what to invest in. We're not going to make you feel stupid about it. We might give you a hard time, but it's all in good fun.
No. It's just all about education. That's what it's about, yeah. I think.
Oh, no. David gives me crap about Arrow all the time. Like, I love Arrow. But
what do you mean? I love Arrow.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're warming up to it. But yeah, we've had me and David have had some heated debates about Arrow.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, after that Uniswap fee switch, man, Aerodrome is starting to look better and better.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have our deep dives. So this is a wealth of content. In the source documents on all these, we cite all of our sources. So any information that's put out in these videos or the text or anything, you can double check it. And if you find anything that we get wrong, please. And I'm looking forward to the debate with Mickle. I'm hoping that he can shine some light on maybe some things that me and David overlooked in XRP. We're all here to learn, and that's what this is all about. So with that,
100%.
Let's jump into this. So since you're the guest, Mickle, where do you want to start?
Well, there's two ways we can go about this. One, I would love to go through, and ideally more of a one-by-one, so we can keep some back and forth going on each specific thing. But either your guys' skepticisms, and at some point I'm happy to give my bull case, or whatever order you guys think is the best to go about it. But I'd love to hear your guys' skepticisms, kind of point by point, the stuff you don't like about XRP, and I'd love to give my bull case on XRP. So however you think that should go down, I'm happy to facilitate.
Well, then David, why don't you start us off, and then we'll let Mickle go first, and he can kind of give his take, and then I'll just kind of
really. You want me to start off talking about it? Okay.
Well, no, not just kind of give, you know what it is that we're bearish on. So
this is going to be great. Okay, so here we go, man. So Mickle, my challenge with XRP is it's one of the oldest projects in crypto. It's been around since what, 2012, 2013, something like that, right?
Yeah, one of the first ever blockchains.
Yeah, it's one of the first ever. So, the problem for me is I look back over the last, what is it, greater than a decade, if it launched in 2012, 2013. And I think to myself, what products have they shipped? What products have they shipped on this XRP ledger that actually accrue value to the XRP coin? And so when I go back in time and I ask myself, like, what has been shipped?
Don't debate it, David. Just ask the question. That's my job to debate it.
Yeah. I'm so like, what has been shipped? It looks like not a whole lot. And then I ask myself, well, so how has Ripple Labs survived since 2012, 2013?
Well, David, just ask the question and let him give it the bull case, and I'll give the bear case.
Sure. So how has XRP survived since 2013?
Well, XRP survived since 2013 because it's one of the longest standing blockchains out there, with significant capabilities associated with it without any major bugs or any major issues, unlike a lot of other chains out there. So like you rightly pointed out, XRP was one of the first blockchains in existence. And I think we're coming into a very interesting point for blockchains in general. But one of my favorite things about the XRP ledger, honestly, is just the structure of the tokens that so many people have a problem with. I know one of the things you mentioned, and I think what you were alluding to, was how does Ripple still exist? Obviously from selling XRP. But there's a very important distinction here. The vast majority of protocols, and trust me, I see them all because we work with private deals, we talk to a lot of the VCs. There's a difference in how these things are built out. So the vast majority of protocols, to get off and running, they ship all their tokens out to VCs who have no economic interest in the protocol. They don't care about the future of the protocol. Ultimately, they have these huge unlocks that sell down. You can see every single chart on CoinMarketCap of all these VC-led tokens. And ultimately, it's a massive value extraction event. What Ripple is doing is selling XRP or building out the ecosystem. So they've built out Ripple Prime, they've built out Rail, which is B2B stablecoins. They've built out a whole bunch of different divisions that are now being incorporated into the traditional financial system, ultimately to come back to the XRP ledger. So is it some instantaneous build out that the second they go purchase a company, you're going to see all this massive volume on the XRP ledger? Absolutely not. But to be honest, I love this structure because it keeps the value occurring in the XRP ecosystem rather than some VC taking all the tokens, dumping them, and then going into the next project that they're going to rinse and repeat on.
You're totally right on that, man. You're totally right about the VCs dumping. Yeah.
Yes. I would disagree. I agree with all of that, but I would disagree with the value being accrued to the XRPL and the XRP token, because you can look at it currently. Many of the things that you just mentioned are offerings that Ripple provides as a service, and it does not accrue because many of them don't even use the XRPL or XRP. Most of the profit that is being generated currently goes to Ripple, the company, not the XRP token holders. And a good example of that is RLUSD. Because of the Genius Act, it is backed 1-to-1 with the US dollar or US dollar equivalent. By law, any interest that accrues, just like Circle or any other ones, it's not exclusive to Ripple. This isn't a jab at Ripple, but by law in the Genius Act, all of that interest that accrues from holding those treasuries is kept by Ripple. It does not go back to XRP token holders. There's a huge misconception. A lot of people don't understand the separation between XRP, the XRPL, and Ripple. XRP, there was a whole court case. It was the SEC versus Ripple with Judge Torres. She ruled XRP is not a security. That means that there is no contractual obligation between Ripple and the XRP token holders. The XRP token is purely speculative. It is a gas token.
Those two things contradict because it can't, because gas token is utility and then purely speculative is the opposite of what you just defined as a gas token. So those, like saying those two things they can't. It's either has utility and speculation, which it absolutely is. Of course, it has utility and speculation, or it's a gas token, but like a gas token is utility.
let me rephrase then. It is highly speculative and has very little value accrual because for the most part, all it is a very cheap gas token.
So here, let me jump in.
What do you look at as value accrual? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Value accrual is the mechanisms, the tokenomics. Like a good example that we use is Hype. Hype, 100% of the fees that are generated on the protocol go to buying back and permanently burning the token.
And who buys it back?
It's programmatic. So
it's done by the protocol or done by?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Done by the protocol.
Yes. So that makes it deflationary. That it can work in reverse. If there isn't as much volume as there has been, it can work in reverse. It can flip to be inflationary. Same thing with Canton.
So Mike, let me ask Mickle a question. So I'm curious to learn more about the value accrual mechanism, Mickle, as you see it for the XRP token.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of cheap gimmicks in the cryptocurrency industry where this whole value accrual thing is like often overblown. I thought Veteran Crypto, I thought you made a great point. Like there was an entire case defining that anything Ripple does is not passed through XRP, but it absolutely shouldn't be. Like a lot of what I see in crypto is nothing more than substituting a securities offering for the token itself. And it totally messes up the capital structure. If you're a cryptocurrency company and you're creating revenue and then you're buying back tokens with that money, or you have some incentive to do that in another way, in my opinion, it's a horrible use of capital because what you should be doing is either reinvesting and building out your platform or paying out the actual shareholders and investors a dividend. The token is completely separate from from the profits of the company, and it should be. So the value accrual of XRP.
Then let me ask you this then. Why buy the token?
Why buy the XRP token?
Yeah, what is the value accrual model for the XRP token?
So like the value accrual model is an interesting way to put it, but I'll put it like this. There's a couple different ways that I believe XRP is going to accrue value over time. The first way, as we talked about, is just the fact that XRP is a deflationary asset. In the same exact way, go ahead, Veteran Crypto, you disagree with that?
Yeah, no, I disagree. It is technically deflationary.
That's like a tough one to disagree with. It's
the cost of a transaction. It is roughly 0.00001 cents per transaction. It's one of the selling points for XRP that it's cheap and it's fast. At max TPS, it would take over 5,000 years to burn just 10% of the supply.
So I want to hear what Mickle has to say. So how is it deflationary, Mickle?
Oh, yeah,
well, there's 100 billion XRP tokens issued, and they're constantly being burned out of existence. And even if you want to make the argument that it's not deflationary, it's not inflationary. So you have a scarce asset automatically with the entire token issuing structure. Even something like Hype, as you pointed to earlier, you have all these counterbalancing mechanisms in terms of what are the fees, is it inflationary, is it deflationary? It's just a very predictable store of value sort of setup in a very similar way to Bitcoin. Both of them have a set amount that the entire market knows. And then just on the deflationary side, I see what you're saying. Like, yes, we're not at the point where 10% of XRP has been burned out of existence today, but we haven't even seen a remote or significant amount of adoption of really any cryptocurrency systems or clarity. So I'd be overall concerned if XRP was being burned at such an exponential rate this early on. But even if I concede the argument, even if I said that XRP is very, very mildly deflationary, it's still a store value asset.
There is a cap because there is a max TPS that can be processed on the XRPL.
So I want to hear what Mickle has to say about the max TPS. What do you think about that, Mickle?
I mean, I just think like it's a fundamental like block in how software works. Like you're not going to go push to the TPS to 10,000 or 15,000 or 20,000 if you're not sustainably hitting those caps. So there's very easy implementations to the XRP ledger via batch transactions, via payment channels, and also through changing the way XRP ledger history is stored that can massively boost the amount of TPS that can be done. That's true for any chain. Like at the end of the day, this is software, and all this software can be iterated on over time and change. But why are you going to run this race of maxing out TPS when you're not in a position where that's the number one build out opportunity? Like, yeah, you can build TPS and maximize that as much as possible, but is there really a point to focus on that if you're not filling up TPS? So in my opinion, it's like, those things evolve with time. They always
hold on.
do.
Am I going to get a chance to like say anything?
What is the follow up? I'm so curious. What is the follow up opportunity? What are they focusing on right now, or should they be focusing on right now?
Ripple or like the XRP ledger specifically?
What do you think, Mike? Ripple or XRP ledger? We focus on XRP ledger.
I kind of want to have my chance to.
I'll take on that one next. I want to hear what you had to say, veteran.
All right. So the max TPS, if you batch, that's even worse because it's a transaction. It's a single transaction, if I'm not mistaken.
No, because it's rolled into a single transaction.
Exactly. So it's 0.00001 cents per transaction. Max TPS factors in because that is the max amount of transactions that can be done per second. So it gives a cap on how much XRP that can be burned through gas fees. At max TPS, at that cost, it would take, it's actually more around 7,000 years for 10% of the XRP's supply to be burned. It's negligible. I don't see it being any sort of value to the XRP token holder.
But even if it's not inflationary in comparison to the vast majority of cryptocurrency protocols out there, having a structured set supply
on its own merits. I'm not comparing it. I want to weigh XRP on its own merits.
But even on its own merits, then, right? Like, you still have a slightly deflationary protocol, assuming that transaction fees and TPS and none of these things ramp up, which I just personally think those things have ramped up over time and will continue to ramp up as more usage happens. But like, even if you go through it not being deflationary, just being an anti-inflationary chain or a steady supply, even then, I would still argue that that's great as a store of value and being able to forecast and understand the future value proposition of the tokens I buy today. I mean, I look at things like Ethereum and their fee burn schedule, and I look at things even like you mentioned with Hype. When you have this gamification of it, right? And sometimes it's deflationary and sometimes it's inflationary. It's just not so much, in my opinion, a store of value because you're just unsure of what those future tokenomics are going to be. There's no actual understanding of where the cap will be. I know today there will never be more XRP tokens than there is right now. And I can say that as a matter of fact. So for me, that's a very clear and obvious store of value.
But it's a moot point if the burn rate is so minimal, so negligible.
I'm giving that to you, even if it wasn't being burned. I know what the supply is, even if it was completely steady. People are still going to be losing. More XRP will be turned up through ETFs and AMMs. It's just like
does not give value to the XRP token holder.
Why?
I know how many tokens are in a meme coin. It doesn't mean that me buying the token it makes it valuable.
But I mean, to a certain degree, right? Like, the meme coins have gotten more valuable with time. Like, even if you disagree with the value creation of what that meme coin is doing, like, there's no way you say they can't appreciate in value.
Some meme coins have gone up off pure speculation and off of community. And I think that's what a lot of XRP is. A lot of XRP is a lot of marketing, a lot of mind share, and a lot of hype.
Well, So just to get back to the second point, right? The first thing I would say, that very steady tokenomics. The next piece goes directly into speculation. Like, it's just a whole idea that speculation is bad, in my opinion, is so crazy. Take a look at how everything.
It's just short term.
No, it's absolutely not. Take a look at the entire United States equity market. That entire thing is funneled by absolutely zero utility in the underlying stock holdings, but people speculating on the upcoming appreciation of the individual asset. So I believe fundamentally speculation is a key driver of absolutely every single market out there. Can there be rampant speculation in one direction or the other?
You're talking absolutely about security.
Long-term speculation is what has driven almost every single capital market throughout history.
A security that has a legal backing, you have legal rights, you can get dividends, you have voting rights, you have a lot of things with the security. It is your apples and oranges, my friend.
No, because at the end of the day, the XRP ledger provides functionality for you as well. It doesn't matter. You can speculate on gold. What do you think the gold market is driven by? The vast majority of gold trading, look this up, is driven by speculation. The vast majority of oil trading is driven by speculation. Like speculation drives every single market long term. So this idea that it's just a short term thing that just goes away is completely counterfactual with all the evidence we have seen in major commodity and equity markets throughout history.
Now you're talking about commodities that actually have utility. Oil makes gas, it makes kerosene, it makes the world go round. Gold has been a store of value for thousands and thousands of years, has electronics utility, has a lot of different things. XRP is not the same.
Well, I mean, I could be the person who goes and runs around about investing in gold today. But to be honest, I like to be early in things. I'm not investing for the end of maturation state of, oh, now it's completely obvious that all these things have taken place. Like my goal is to position myself prior to these things necessarily being obvious to the mainstream person. So you're right. Is XRP at that same level of adoption as gold or oil? Absolutely not. But my fundamental belief is being able to settle transactions nearly instantaneously, cheap and fast, with a company like Ripple integrating the XRP ledger into the back end of a lot of major financial institutions. Like, to me, that sets the XRP ledger up for a really good place. And then I know you're going to debate that, but that's my third point. So you go ahead.
Let me jump in here just for a second. So Mike, what I really want to hear, I want to hear the bull case. You know, like I think I have a bear case in my mind, but I want to hear something that refutes my hypothesis a little bit. So Mickle, Mike, what do you think? Is it okay if we ask Mickle about like what's the bull case for XRP?
If you want, I mean, it's like I said. I'd love the back and forth, but yeah, go ahead.
This goes into my third point anyway that I wanted to touch on. So if you take a look at the build out of the internet, right, which is something that I always come back to when evaluating blockchain technology, because I find a lot of it very similar. If you take a look at what the internet fundamentally did for society, it created an open platform for people to share and transact information nearly instantaneously for very cheaply. And that's a big part of what the internet did for society. I believe blockchain is doing a very similar thing for value. What I fundamentally think is interesting, and where, in my opinion, I was always so attracted to XRP versus a lot of other cryptocurrencies out there, is this view that, like, I always thought it was like, from, I don't know if it was my experience in enterprise, if it's just the way I thought about things, I always thought it was hyper unrealistic that all these financial institutions were going to go away and everyone was just going to be going to a coffee store with their wallet and they're going to be scanning and everyone's going to be there on bank. Like, I just know a lot of people, no one's interested in doing that in my personal life. They don't even want to download Robinhood, let alone go to a store with their ledgers. Like, that just always seemed unrealistic. So I've always had this idea that blockchain technology is not a front-end application, it's a back-end application. And if you take a look at where the vast majority of economic activity lies in the financial system, it's not by your average retail participant, it's by large financial institutions. The Ripple strategy fundamentally is, rather than knocking on the door and banging on these financial institutions and saying, you adopt blockchain technology right now, we're not going to work with you. What Ripple has done is build out a suite of products that allows them into those ecosystems to structurally build into it, whether it's through Ripple's payments, whether it's through custody, whether it's through prime brokerage, whether it's through stablecoin, integrate into the back end. And then ultimately, inevitably, where I believe we're headed is the full adoption of blockchain technology. And Ripple already has systems built into their back end to promote the usage of the XRP ledger as they build out actual crypto initiatives on the onset of things like Clarity.
So who has adopted their technology?
In terms of, so Ripple Treasury is connected to about 12,000 different financial institutions. Ripple Prime is settling about $6 trillion annually. If you take a look at Ripple Payments is integrated. Last time we got a real update on this was the SEC court case. So you'd imagine there's probably been some growth since then. Around 600 banking institutions that use Ripple Payments. And I know the counter argument is going to be like, well, how much of that directly runs on the XRP ledger? That's ultimately where your thesis has to end up. Because my fundamental belief is that because I'm a bull on blockchain technology and I believe that crypto is going to be the most efficient way of moving value into the future, like, they're not going to say, oh, now we're going to incorporate Solana into our backend. Like, okay. I think obviously it's going to go to the XRP ledger.
I think I have a handle on your thesis. So your thesis is
I think some of those numbers are wrong, by the way, bro.
They are. But I want to understand Mickle a little better here. So you're going much higher up the risk profile when it comes to your investments with XRP then, because a lot of what you are saying is highly, highly speculative. Like, for example, I actually was listening to one of your shows recently, talking about Wells Fargo and the Ripple Treasury. So reading here from the Wells Fargo developer portal, it actually doesn't use the XRPL or XRP. It uses pre-built APIs. So
I made that point, right? Like, I'm not saying that it uses.
No.
XRP
Like I said, I'm not looking for a gotcha moment. This is for
let me just
people
rephrase
that don't understand.
My idea is that all these banks have a software suite they use, and what Ripple is doing is integrating into that software.
Slow down. Give me a chance to finish. I'm let you say your piece. All I'm trying to say here, it's not a gotcha moment. What I'm trying to say here is that when people hear that Ripple has a deal with Wells Fargo, all the people that are XRP is going to $1,000, their little sirens start going off and their feel goods go. So I want people to understand that just because someone is working with Ripple does not automatically mean they're working with the XRPL or using XRP. Go ahead. That's the point,
Mike. A point about that, though, it sounds to me, and Mickle, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds to me like part of what you're saying is that the XRP ledger does not need to be used right now today with all of these different integrations for XRP to become more valuable over time, and that there is a way that like Ripple Prime and ODL, processing payment transaction volume, can actually make the XRP coin more valuable over time, and that we're just early? Is that part of the bull case?
I would say absolutely. So my fundamental belief is like, yes, you could have kept on running a lot of businesses today without a website. Like, you don't need a website. You could run your business today without an email address. Did those changes, did those incorporations of the internet allow companies to build use cases and product sets that didn't exist at the time because of that? Absolutely. And ultimately, every business was forced to capitulate and incorporate the better rails because it opened up better functionality than they already have and new existing use cases that couldn't exist before. So I believe you're going to see that same paradigm, right? That same revolution in the financial sector. I believe in the very early days, it's going to be very simple things, right? Things like stable coins, right? Very simple use cases. Then you're going to move into tokenized treasuries. Then you're going to move into repo. Then you're going to move into settling transactions. Then you're going to move into the mobility of collateral and lending. And then you're going to start to see products exist in crypto in a structured financial way that couldn't have otherwise existed. So I believe by Ripple capturing a lot of these financial institutions, and by being able to integrate inside of them, they get closer to that massive value stack, right, that they possess, that ultimately will have an association and usage on distributed ledger technology.
But my mind still comes back to what value does XRP, what connection does it have to Ripple? I'm very bullish on Ripple. They're doing great things. They're buying up Medico. They're buying up, all these licenses, and they're doing great things.
That's Ripple Labs. Yeah.
Ripple Labs. But that does, like I said with Wells Fargo, there's a lot of examples like that where a lot of these partnerships and perceived partnerships will not use the XRPL or XRP. The utility, the reason I bought it is it made sense that that XRP needed to be a high valuation before RLUSD, because it was going to be like the XRPL was the rails and that XRP was the gas and the vehicle that was going to move value. So it needed to be a high valuation because it was going to replace Swift, back in the day. And when I was invested in it, it was going to replace it.
About the narratives changing over time. Like,
but let me finish this. I don't want to get off on a rabbit trail. So what happened was they launched RLUSD. And personally, I think it's because banks came to them and said, we don't want to use a volatile asset to move value. Even if it only takes 3 to 5 seconds for a transaction to go through, if we're buying a volatile asset, it shifts in value. Like if you move $1 billion and it shifts 1% in that 3 to 5 seconds, you've just lost $10 million. They don't want to do that. So they came up with RLUSD. It doesn't work in all cases because of a lack of liquidity.
Yeah, but RLUSD, though, right, is an issued asset that fundamentally can't exist without the XRP ledger, without XRP. So as you build other financial products on the XRP ledger, right, the value accrual is more XRP locked in things called automated market makers, which is a way of routing trade. So XRP also, little known fact, through something called pathfinding, is the automatic default liquidity path for the XRP ledger. So any transaction, swap, or move that happens on the XRP ledger, XRP is the default liquidity. So not only is XRP structured as a gas token on the XRP ledger utility, but also structured as a liquidity asset on the XRP
Mike,
ledger.
I want to hear Mickle finish.
Well, I want him to drill down, because what he's saying is that XRP still needs to be a high valuation for because it is under the underlying asset that's moving the value. But what I want to ask is why? Because couldn't I'll just leave it at that. Why does XRP need to be a high valuation now?
Well, I'm not saying that XRP has to be a high valuation now. My fundamental belief is that if you have more and more assets moving over to distributed ledger technology, and if Ripple has a very unique position in through some of the more centralized products they've built to get access to a lot of the capital locked in a lot of these traditional banking institutions, then as that capital is ultimately migrated over to distributed ledger technology, XRP sits as a premier asset on the XRP ledger, not only to act as a liquidity source, but fundamentally, as I said before, which I know we had a disagreement on, but massive amounts of people are going to look at XRP's super positioning in comparison to that stack and then want to speculate and purchase and own XRP.
Speculate.
Absolutely. But I don't see speculation as some bad thing. Like I said, speculation is the primary driver of the FX market. Like, speculation is the primary driver of every single market on earth.
I think that it's interest rates and macro events that are the
actual volume in terms of the trading volume that takes place. It's speculation. It's FX hedge.
Probably.
But that's the problem for me is that it's pure speculation. And
it's not pure speculation though, because you already said it's a gas token, so it's also utility.
But
very little.
So very negligible.
No, but here's the thing you miss out. Here's the thing you miss out on, right? Because this is the most important part. It doesn't matter how much XRP is being burned. The point is this: the XRP ledger cannot exist without XRP. It is a fundamental piece of utility for that entire network. So as long as the XRP ledger, right? Like you even admitted, Ripple's been super successful. They're doing all these great things. Like, I absolutely agree. Ripple's been hyper successful and doing great things.
Dumping XRP, they've been successful.
And
yes.
I believe the next stage, right, is going to be a lot of the things they've built into these financial institutions coming over to the XRP ledger, where XRP is a critical piece of utility on that network.
And if they did, what does it mean for XRP when it's a cheap gas token?
Well, I would. So, can you give me take a look? What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a cheap gas token. If you come down to the functionality of it, and it's not a cheap gas token. It's the most highly valued cryptocurrency in the entire market. So, that seems like a weak argument.
It's got problems too.
Take a look at Ethereum too. Ethereum sits as a gas token as well.
Right, but I kind of, Mike, your point though about judging XRP on its merits without comparing it, I think that we should probably stick with XRP. But Mickle, your point is well taken. Yes, there are problems with Bitcoin and Ethereum.
And we pointed out those issues with Bitcoin in our deep dive as well. Yeah, there's some serious
historically, right? These are the best performing assets in the entire cryptocurrency market since inception. So it's one thing to say, all these other things in the bottom 200 that have failed and are not succeeding, those strategies don't work. All this fake value accrual where you go purchase a whole bunch of tokens and then buy it back and then do all these other things where we sell all the tokens to VCs and then they dump them and we buy them back.
This market has been highly emotional retail speculation up until recently. And we're starting to see it evolve into a utility market. And you can watch all the news outlets. You can watch the smart money and what they're saying. And what they're saying is what we teach here, value accrual. If they're buying a token, they want to know what connection does it have to this, to the revenue, the fees that are generated by the project.
So here, let me jump in real quick and pose a question based on what you just said there, Mike. So we talk here, Mickle, about something that we coined. We coined the trifecta. So the trifecta is 3 items that we think are super important for a number go up for any project, coin, token, whatever. Number 1, it's users. You need users, user growth, user adoption. That signals product market fit. Number 2, those users, they need to drive real revenues on that chain or protocol or whatever. And then those revenues, they need to accrue to you, the token holder, in some way. And so when we're talking about XRP versus like Ripple Labs, I see what Ripple Labs doing as being like super bullish, man. But then I look at the XRP ledger and XRP the coin, and I don't see any users, any revenues, nor do I see any value accrual mechanism to the XRP coin. And so, Mickle, when you're talking about speculation, that makes a lot of sense to me. You want to speculate on XRP? Great. But then it's like, well, why? What's the fundamental reason for buying XRP? Like, that's the thing that I'm losing out on. I don't get that part.
No, I'll get to that in 1 second. But the only thing I would say is like, I absolutely love that you guys have a framework for which you evaluate these things. But like, how does that framework stand up against the top 3, 4 tokens in the market?
The top 3 or 4 mostly fail.
So what use case it is if you have a framework that's been highly unsuccessful about evaluating the top tokens.
Well, the reason that I feel that is like I said, I mean, we've been in a highly speculative, retail-driven, emotional market because institutions couldn't get into it. They wouldn't get into it because it was highly speculative, emotional retail. They are getting into it now.
But even institutions, right? Like the leading ETFs are also things that would fall outside of your guys' category. Like even when institutions are stepping in, they're stepping in to the same exact places that like are the antithesis of the exact accrual and value proposition that you guys put forward.
Oh, Mickle, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. And so here's the thing, though. We're trying to figure out which of these digital assets actually have like a fundamental bullish case outside of just speculating on them. It's fine to speculate. That's all good. But I want to figure out, like,
as long as you understand that you're speculating and it's high risk.
Right.
But how is speculating high risk? Because when you buy a United States Treasury bond, you're speculating. When you're doing absolutely anything in life, you're taking a certain amount of speculation. Like this idea that you have these investments without speculating is insane to me. Like anything out of the top 100 is entirely much higher risk, more speculation.
Go ahead, Mick. I just wanted to hear Mickle finish.
Oh, I was going to say every single asset on the planet you're speculating on. If you go buy United States Treasuries, you're speculating that the United States government is going to be solvent enough to pay you back indefinitely into the future. You're also taking other speculation because you're essentially speculating that inflation isn't going to put you in a position where your new United States Treasuries aren't now returning a real negative yield. So any single investment you make in the entire world is driven by speculation. In fact, the entire rate of the bond market is entirely driven by speculation, which is one of the largest markets on earth. So I just keep on hearing this like word of speculation, like, oh, we don't want to speculate. But like every single market on earth is driven by speculation. There's not a decision you can make that's not speculative. And if there was, you would be taking absolutely no risk on any trade you ever made.
And you know what the difference is between all of those that you mentioned in XRP is there's a locked in yield on many of those. So when you buy a treasury, you're guaranteed that you're going to get at least a 5% yield. With XRP, it could go to $3 and something cents, back down to $1. There's a lot of volatility there.
And why wasn't yield part of your framework?
It is.
So is yield
kind of sort of. That's a good question. Yield. I don't think that yield necessarily is a part of our framework, Mike. I think that
with fees and revenue,
you guys don't even know the framework. How are we gonna debate a framework that doesn't even exist?
No. So I can tell you the framework, man. So look, it's all about trying to determine if there's a fundamental reason why numbers should go up for a digital asset. So if we're talking about something like Hype, which I think is a pretty decent example of a project or a coin that actually fits our 3-pronged framework, there are real users there, man. They drive real revenues, and those revenues are used to buy back and burn Hype. That fits our trifecta. Bada bing, bada boom. You take a look at Bitcoin, not so much, And then I'm just trying to figure out, like for XRP, because that's the topic of our conversation, like it sounds to me like, okay, maybe there's value in speculation. But I wouldn't necessarily say that someone who is, buying U.S. Treasuries is speculating. I think it's more of a fundamental investment if you're buying Treasuries, like the supposed risk-free asset. A lot of people refer to it as return-free risk. But if I'm buying XRP, though, man, like, what is it that I'm speculating on? That at some point, at some date in the future, banks are going to move their transaction volume from ODL to XRPL? Is that what I'm speculating on?
Well, ultimately, really what you're speculating on the XRP ledger, in my opinion, is if you want to take a look at the fundamental path of like really looking into like where is XRP chewed up, where is XRP locked up, then one of the most obvious examples, in my opinion, are liquidity pools and pathfinding. Because both of these things go to XRP's structural advantage, in my opinion, as a blockchain, in the fact as the XRP ledger itself is a decentralized exchange. So because the XRP ledger is a decentralized exchange, XRP sits as the native liquidity. And if you really want to get to the technical fundamentals of like XRP being chewed up, the more assets issued on the XRP ledger, the more transaction volume, the more stablecoins, the more RLUSD is issued, the more XRP acts as a liquidity source between these assets. I want to be clear. I don't fundamentally really believe that that's going to be the thing that causes the vast majority of asset appreciation into the future. Like, in my opinion, especially if you take a look at even something like Hype, like I would argue that Hyperliquid could be buying back absolutely zero of its own tokens and would be in just as great of a place right now, because at the end of the day, people love Hyperliquid. People see the product. People see that Hyperliquid is a necessary gas token and a piece of utility to allow that network to function, and therefore are investing capital back behind it.
The data disagrees. We have a list of tokens that we're keeping an eye on that meet our trifecta, that have that value capture, and all of them are outperforming the overall market and Bitcoin. And some of them they don't get a lot of mind share. They're not sexy, but because they have that value capture, they're doing well.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm fundamentally, like, don't get me wrong, like I'm bullish on like a lot of different projects and interesting things in the ecosystem. What I've noticed is the vast majority of them, though, just haven't necessarily worked out the way people wanted them to. I've found that a lot of the financial engineering that goes on in the background associated with value accrual, in a very similar way, I look at some of the stuff being done with MicroStrategy and the Stretch product. It ends up becoming very recursive when you actually look at it. It's a lot of money being printed out of thin air. It's a lot of transaction fees that ultimately are probably better off just being lowered and or not being there. And it leads to something I like to call artificial incentivization. Because if you're creating a transaction fee for a net user of the protocol just to pay someone else out so there's a yield and they hold your token, are you ultimately just hurting the end users that are supposed to be using the network for its underlying utility? And the more I look into a lot of these different systems, the more I notice that a lot of them are extremely recursive. And you end up with fees just to try to create artificial incentives to hold the underlying token that actually detracts from the value of the underlying network. And is there going to be examples where certain things work out? Yeah, potentially there are things that do work out that make sense. But the vast majority of them, I do believe, are just a lot more to try to entice people to come in and hold the token. And I think that's why over the course of history, the vast majority of those systems have not held up over assets that are just there to maintain and produce on the underlying ledger something like a Bitcoin, something like an XRP, something like Ethereum. These assets that are fundamental utilities to the underlying networks, and they don't try to create some gamification around reasons to hold the token.
But there's that you just stated, and I agree. But there are differences. So if the only thing in the tokenomics is that gamification or that inflationary aspect, where they're incentivizing people to hold the token by basically printing the token to pay yield out. It changes when that token, like say with Canton, there's an infinite supply. A lot of people point that out, but there is the burn mechanism, and with adoption, that burn goes up to where eventually at some point, hopefully it will flip. Hopefully will flip deflationary. So but
isn't that significantly worse than something like XRP that's just not inflationary?
Let me finish. I keep getting cut off, and I give you a chance to finish. So So Canton it's used extensively. The token is a integral part of the ecosystem, with validators or super validators having to lock it. If you want to have a featured app, you have to lock it. It's burned, 100% of which is or fees, 100% of which is burned.
Because they make money.
And it's generating $2 to $3 million a day in fees that are all burned. XRP, let's bring it back to XRP. What is going on with XRP that is giving any value to the token holder other than speculative pumps?
Well, let me just say one thing. Those charts where it's just like first listed and then gradually depreciates to zero, and then everyone realizes that the narrative that they put on their token and all the artificial incentives turned out to do nothing. Let's see what happens with Canton, because it's already on its way there, and I have a feeling, just like every other project that gives out all of its tokens or a large supply of them to early allocators and VCs that care absolutely zero about the underlying network, retail comes in, retail gets all excited. Oh, this is the next big thing because X, Y, and Z. And then ultimately it gets sold down essentially to a baseline 80%, 90% down from where it originally is. Looking at the Canton chart, I wouldn't be surprised if that same thing happens.
Okay. Now let's bring it back to XRP again.
So Mike,
hold on. I want to bring it back to XRP because my question never got answered.
About XRP.
What value? Ripple has had over 10 years. What value? What has Ripple done? What have they onboarded that has brought any value to the XRPL that has generated fees or revenue or done anything to give value to the XRP token holder other than a whole lot of hype, a massive marketing machine that constantly talks about the token to create speculative pumps so that each month they can sell XRP, and dump on retail and use them as liquidity to grow their business?
Well, so even if I went in, right, where I disagree with a lot of those points, obviously, but even if I just agreed with you, right, that was being done, what the market is telling you is that the market still sees insane value with XRP, and that's why it's positioned where it is, and that's why it's appreciated like it has over time. There's a reason why XRP is one of the top cryptocurrencies, and you guys might disagree with the market, but the market has proven through XRP's entire history that it disagrees with you guys. So even if you have this concept, right, of all these super evil things that Ripple is doing to dump all their XRP and they don't care about the XRP ledger, but the market obviously sees that substantially different. And I would argue the market agrees a lot more with me, where it's looking at XRP and saying, wait a minute, Ripple is making strategic decisions here, right, to offload XRP, to build out the capabilities of the XRP ledger to pay dividends later. And I fundamentally believe that's an extremely smart thing to do. I would be significantly more bearish on XRP if Ripple took the approach of 99% of crypto in the very early days, said, oh, we need to raise a whole bunch of money. Let's give 35%, 50% of the XRP supply to a bunch of VCs. And everyone says, oh, Ripple's not selling XRP. It's all these VCs who dump these token prices to zero, extract all the network liquidity. At least what Ripple is doing is the fundamental answer to your question. They're buying real businesses, incorporating those businesses and their product stacks into the actual financial institutions that are going to matter in the future. And the last part of the thesis, right, where we'll see if I'm right, we'll see if I'm wrong, is that a lot of these financial institutions are going to, upon the Clarity Act being passed, upon regulations coming in, upon the tokenization of assets, which is exploding, look for further blockchain capabilities. And I believe when you already have a partner cemented into your infrastructure stack with actual, right, not a bunch of 20-year-olds running ship in Indonesia saying, oh, this is what we're doing, we made a cool website, everyone gets super excited, right? Actual people who worked in high positions of finance, they're going to be able to respect and draw the attention of these important players for where they build out.
And I want to ask him a question.
Well, really quick, I want to bring it back to why they've been around for over a decade. I'm going to keep asking this question. They've been around for over a decade. They have onboarded little to nothing to the XRPL. People, right. I've heard the narrative shift many times. Exactly. As soon as the court case is done, as soon as a Clarity Act is passed,
as soon as this, as soon as
this, never happens. And the Clarity Act, there's plenty of projects out there. Again, Canton's one of them I'm just going to point them out because they're the one that has the massive amount of adoption going on of people actually going live, institutions actually going live.
Shipping. Actually shipping real stuff on the chain.
And there is a connection to the token where value is accrued by the token. XRP cannot say that.
No, they can't.
And it has a $60 billion market cap.
And I can't figure out
where's the risk reward.
Well, guys,
buying the token.
Canton's daily volume is like significantly under like 30 million. Like that's the exact sort of retail speculation that it like drives like obviously
hold on. Cite a
retail
source.
Activity. Like you don't get the XRP ledger normally trading at $3 to $4 billion in volume with just retail activity. Like I think we can both accept that. Like there's one thing to point to a narrative.
I don't think we can.
What'd you say?
I don't think we can. I don't think that we can both accept the numbers that you just cited.
Yeah.
That retail's pulling in $3 billion of trading volume daily?
No. That what you said about and what you said about Canton, because they're generating real revenue, real fees of $2 to $3 million a day. That is verifiable. That is on chain. That is data that you can look at.
What is it meant for appreciation of the token? What is it meant for?
Because 100% of that $2 to $3 million a day, as of right now, with current adoption, buys back and burns the CC token.
It's not.
And why is the token going down? Like clearly, there's that metric, right? Like
that's a valid question.
Valuable is not causing the price to go up. So like,
that's a
waste of capital in the grand scheme of things, because it's nothing more than buying back a bunch of the tokens that they issued out in the very early days that probably shouldn't have been issued out.
So Mickle, let's bring it back to XRP, because I think that's what we want to talk about here.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you a question about XRP that I'm genuinely interested in your answer on.
Let me just say one thing real quick. I actually am like a fan of the Canton team, and I think they're doing some really cool stuff.
I get it.
The counter arguments out there, but like I'm not gonna I don't want anyone to come at me and say
no, we're not about that here. Like I said, we get spirited here. Me and David will almost be shouting back and forth. So this is fun to us.
I love it, guys. No, don't worry about that.
Yeah. So, I'm just trying to figure out, because I see so much being built on Canton, real dApps being shipped, real stuff, real utility. I want to learn more about what is actually being shipped on the XRP ledger and what exists there, because I've had a difficult time finding any real dApps that you can actually use. Tell me a little bit about these XRP ledger liquidity pools, like the native AMM and the XRP ledger pathfinding. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like this is a little bit of a point of confusion in terms of how the XRP ledger operates and in comparison to a lot of other networks. So something very unique about the XRP ledger, in a very actually similar way to Bitcoin, is feature sets are not built up as secondhand applications. So you don't have this massive dApp market on the XRP ledger as you would with something like Ethereum. Because the second you have something that like it's agreed upon by all the validators in the network that like, hey, this is a really important piece of utility, rather than some centralized company building some centralized smart contracts and saying, okay, this is now a decentralized application, which I don't know how Uniswap keeps delisting assets from their decentralized application. But put that aside, the truth is these things are just built directly into the core protocol. So the functionality is built directly into the core protocol. So you wouldn't have an Aave on the XRP ledger, right? Like the XRP ledger itself acts as a lending protocol. You wouldn't have a Uniswap on the XRP ledger because the XRP ledger itself is a DEX. The primary reasons why I think this is beneficial and are also slightly hurtful in some ways, we'll go over both, is one, it concentrates liquidity into the layer one security of the XRP ledger. So on Ethereum, right, you could have a Uniswap pool hack, and then suddenly it's like, wait, the Uniswap smart contracts were nowhere as safe as I thought they were, because it's not really built on the security of Ethereum. It's built on secondhand smart contracts. The other thing it does is you don't have 10 different DEXs, right, where it's like, oh, I have Pancake Swap and Uniswap and Sushi Swap and all these different DEXs, because liquidity is routed and siloed into one central point, which is the XRP ledger itself, which is vastly more efficient. Now, the downside is you don't have a lot of this secondhand economic activity that you get with having some of these applications built up, right? So you look at a lot of these things and people really like it. They're like, oh, I love Uniswap. Like, I want to invest money here. Like, I need to go buy some ETH so I can transfer this over and then swap it. So you lose kind of that like ecosystem sort of thing that's built on top of it, which I do think to a certain degree is a downside, but I actually prefer the way the XRP ledger does it and actually how Bitcoin does it by just saying these things should be integrated into the core protocol. There shouldn't be another layer built on top of it that might have security issues and is going to segregate liquidity and potentially lead to things that, in my opinion, like I don't think a company maintaining smart contracts is much different than a company maintaining an exchange. Yes, you can give out voting power. You can do a whole bunch of other things that differentiate a little bit. But the truth is it's vastly different from layer one security.
So here, let me follow up on that real quick. So why doesn't any of this stuff work then? Like XRP Ledger and Ripple Labs, they've been around forever, since 2012, 2013, but I don't see them shipping anything on the XRP Ledger itself. Like, how do I actually use these AMM front ends? Like, is there a money market on XRP Ledger? Like, how do you use it? Where is it? What's it called? Like, none of this stuff works. How do you use this stuff?
I definitely wouldn't say it doesn't work, because like it absolutely works. And Ripple is shipping a whole bunch of stuff, as well as the XRP Ledger Foundation as well. So batch, lending are two big protocol upgrades are coming. Other things that we just saw was the implementation of the AMM in comparison to the DEX. There's DID, there's clawbacks, there's been a whole bunch of things. Actually, it's the fastest the XRP Ledger has built out a lot of these things in the future. And I think one of the more valid criticisms is like, hey, like when are we going to start to see really material trading volume and volume utilizing these features in the way we see on some of these other applications? Now, my underlying thesis, right, at the end of the day, is that it's just a much different market. Like if you take a look at the vast majority of things done in crypto today, I think there's a reason why Ethereum TVL is substantially under the peak it had in 2021. And that's because a lot of it at the end of the day was just slop. Like a lot of it was just DeFi yield generation schemes, meme coin trading, and NFT creation that were ultimately, in my opinion, just insiders uplisting NFTs for super high prices to get retail to FOMO in to move the market.
Agreed, 100%.
Agree. So like, I don't really think like, what is the XRP Ledger fundamentally missed out on? Like, has there been cool applications built out? Yes. Have some of them been sustainable? Yes. Are we at mass adoption? No. So I just don't think anyone's really been mass adopted in ways of a lot of utility.
But it's been around forever, and there's nothing that you can actually use on the XRP Ledger. Like, can you name like the URL for the DEX that a retail user can go to on the XRPL or the money market
or anything?
Let me just come back to this thing again. Like all these feature sets are incorporating directly into the XRP Ledger. So if you go to an XRP Ledger native app, right, like the Xanam app, which is the most popular XRP Ledger app, all those feature sets are incorporated directly into your wallet. So you don't have to go scan a QR code and do this other application and go over to this other DEX that you might not trust and say, okay, who's behind this DEX? Like all of these things are on the native XRP Ledger. There's not some second layer of trust you need. So
But how is it that anybody in retail couldn't use it? What? I mean, without a DApp or a platform, you know, how does anybody access it? I mean, it can all be on the XRPL, but if there's no UI, there's no UI, there's nothing to bring the liquidity on chain or anything like that.
How do you actually use it?
How do you use it? Well, that's the thing that's interesting, right? Like you with your standard XRP Ledger native wallet, you get access to full capabilities on the XRP Ledger. I'll also tell you from a lot of experience, a lot of the big custodians out there, right? I'm not going to name any names here, but there's really big institutional custodians out there. They have full access to the feature sets on the XRP Ledger. So it's one of those things where you don't have to go.
But they don't use them.
Sign into another app.
That's the key.
They've got access. That's what I keep coming back to.
They've had the ability to launch and to use the XRPL. And a minute ago, I had the XRP scan pulled up, and the data shows it. There's a decreasing. It is a contracting ecosystem. Transactions, accounts, all of it is almost all down and to the right.
So accounts, obviously accounts are always going up. If you're looking at daily active created accounts, right? Like the total accounts is always up and to the right because a lot of them are stored.
Let's take a look at that, Mickle. So, Mike, I know that you're controlling the screen.
Guys, come on. Like, what chart doesn't look like that in the bear market of crypto? Like,
but we're talking about XRP. And
I know, if I'm gonna come on here and talk about a stock, right, and the S&P 500 is down 30%, and then we say, how is this company like I'm not going to be able to argue against
it. Isn't the narrative for XRP and the XRPL that it's being adopted by institutions and banks?
Just to be clear, right? I said this part before. What I believe the holy grail and the long-term thesis is going to be is that what Ripple is building to right now, in a very similar way to Amazon starting with books. Like Amazon started with books, right? And we could have all sat there and said, "Oh my God, it's just a book company. They're not doing anything. They're never going to be able to scale." But what it really was building out a network that was going to allow them to tap into different retailers, different sellers, different market participants, and most importantly for Amazon, understand the business logic they were going to have to implement to ultimately incorporate into Amazon Web Services. If you take a look at a similar example of what Ripple is doing, that's what I believe they're doing with their centralized products via the XRP ledger ultimately.
But what brought Amazon, the used bookstore, to what it is now? Adoption. Yeah. And Ripple and XRP has been one of the top 10 tokens and projects for over a decade now. And again, what have they shipped? Who have they onboarded? I mean, look at the data. Number of payments from one account to another, down and to the right. Over time. I mean, this is since 2025.
I mean, go look at RWAs issued on the XRP ledger.
RWA
chart of RWA issued on the XRP ledger.
There's 4 billion. There's 4 billion in TVL, 1 billion of which is RLUSD. So that leaves 3 billion. And of that, how much of it is actually being moved? A lot of it is just basically stored value. And if it's not being moved, XRP isn't being burned. That's the only thing that it does is it's burned in transactions. And if all of that is stagnant liquidity, it's not even burning XRP. So what value does it bring to the XRP token?
So I think one of the biggest things we disagree on is just the value, like how you guys fundamentally make investments and value the potential success of a future network. Because I totally understand your guys' framework. Trust me, I've heard it forever. But that's the same thing that all the people who have been anti-Bitcoin have been screaming forever and have been flat on their face wrong. It's just a lot of these things that you're pulling up ultimately, while it's important to see network growth and adoption, I believe the XRP ledger is going to do that. It has not been a good indication of what's been successful in crypto, even in the slightest.
So, Mickle, what you're saying, I just want to make sure that I heard you correctly, is that XRP ledger does nothing and has never done anything, but that's okay because speculation makes number go up, and that's the same thing for Bitcoin and most other digital assets, right?
And you can make money on that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that XRP holders aren't going to make money. I did. I bought it low 30 cents and I sold it $2. There's value short term. What I'm trying to debate here is the people that buy this as the life-changing money for their kin, their generational wealth, that whole buzzword, where it's going to somehow make them millionaires and billionaires, and they're going to be able to pass that on to their kids. And you know what? That could happen. Weirder things have happened. But my point is that you need to have a solid basis for why you are investing in this, and simply investing off of emotion, or you're better off buying a lottery ticket. Because look at this. This is XRP burned as fees. It did more.
But the problem is wait 1 second. The problem is all historical price action is so far against the statement you just made. Are you better off buying a lottery ticket? Obviously we're in the middle of a bear market right now, and it's still difficult, other than in recent past, to have picked a point over the past 14 years to be down on XRP. The same is true for Bitcoin. These two assets are some of the only two assets that over the course of time in history have continued to perform against the rest of the market. So when you're better off buying a lottery ticket, I don't know what lottery tickets you're buying, but just a couple months ago, about a year ago, right? There was never a time in history where you could have purchased XRP and been down on that XRP. That is not the truth for a lot of crypto tokens out there. So like, I just disagree with the framing, to be honest.
So, Mickle, you're right. You're exactly right about that. I think that the difference here is the reason why XRP has gone up since 2013. Yes. What I see, man, is that Ripple Labs has just been dumping this thing to fund their operations. And I think that a lot of retail has been suckered in to buying XRP based on an ever-changing narrative. It's always, oh, when this happens, then number go up. Or when partnership.
And when it doesn't, it's lift and shift.
But Mickle's right though when it comes to saying, hey, you know what? Number has gone up over time. It has. It definitely has. And so the market is saying that there is some value here. The problem is, I think the market's wrong, man. And I think the market is fair, right? Retail.
Like I'm not like I am never on the side of saying, hey, you can't have a bearish or bullish view on the asset. Like I think I think that's what at the end of the day makes a market, right? Like without that, there is no market. So like I fundamentally like totally understand the viewpoint of saying this is wrong. I think the point I push back on is like, it's been the right thing in comparison to a sea of like everything being wrong, like so many things in crypto failing and not working and having terrible price performance and going away and not actually doing anything in terms of significance. Like XRP has been one of the few assets through history that's been able to buck that trend. So that's the only thing that it's like, hey, like you have a million different things to pick from in crypto to say like, call out and be like, this is the thing that's going to fail. But you guys hyper focus on XRP, which seems to be the one thing that's done well.
Brother, the marketing is so scammy.
Yes.
It's so horrible. It's like the narrative is always changing. It's like insert name of institution here, when partnership, then number go up. And then retail who knows nothing buys XRP because it's all over every centralized exchange.
From Ripple, are you saying?
No, I'm saying that the XRP coin, I think it's a scam.
No. Like the scam, like promoting you see from Ripple.
No, I think from a lot of influencers out there put out a lot of content, and I think that it's extremely misleading.
They make a lot of baseless claims, and they make a lot of statements like they're statements of fact, when in fact it is 100% inaccurate.
Look, I mean, like, I'm not going to sit here and say like people don't like. There's not people who get theses wrong. I'm not even going to say there aren't people out there.
No, I think it's more than that. It's not that they
misrepresent
wrong.
Information. But like
I
also on the contrary to that,
misrepresent the information.
On the contrary to that, like I've talked with a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space, and some of the most intelligent, smartest people I have ever talked to are building and incorporating core amendments into the XRP ledger. Like some of the smartest people in the entire crypto ecosystem that I've had the chance to spend significant amounts of time with are people in the XRP community. So it's like, at one end, like you're absolutely right. There's a whole group of people who are like pump the wrong things, but there's also some of the most intelligent people I've ever talked to who are absolutely fundamentally bullish on this asset. So like, I'm not going to be able to say like, oh, just because there's some crazy people, that makes XRP a scam. That makes XRP a bad asset. Like that's asinine. Like that's just a dumb way of thinking.
What we're saying is what a lot of those people do and say. It has a lot to do with why XRP has a $60 billion market cap.
You think so?
I know so.
I do. I agree with Mike here.
You can scroll through X and you can even look through the chat, our chat right now. I've been kind of chuckling at some of the comments because it's people that are just.
But there's cryptocurrencies with significantly more X volume that have absolutely.
I don't think so.
I think absolutely. Go look at the top mentioned cryptocurrencies on X right now. Find which one's bigger than XRP.
Well, I think that, over time, I think that XRP is like consistently the number one mentioned digital asset, like period. Like when I take a look at like,
but it's definitely not. Like you can look at the stats for it. It's really something. You look at Sentiment. Sentiment's a website that tracks this across all different media sources. Like XRP is normally, right, like because of its size, like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, it's normally talked about, I don't know, in the top 20-ish, top 15-ish. But every single time I look on that website, it's 3, 5, 6 different tokens right at the top, right? The number one being thing talked about in all of socials. And this is the thing that I don't think crypto people really realize. Like, the vast majority of people who are actually moving markets and transacting are not sitting on X every day. Like, that is not the market. We are a tiny microcosm on X of a massive, and I mean massive amount of trading volume that happens every single day. Like, the people releasing XRP videos, are they getting small people into XRP? But is that moving the market? One of the early founders of XRP, Jed McCaleb, he sold around 10 billion XRP over the course of 3 to 4 years, and it had no impact on price. There's no way you convince me that retail is making.
I don't know about that. I was there for that, because that was one of the narratives. As soon as he stopped dumping on, dumping his XRP, because he had to sell it, so because he was going to start XLM and all that stuff. But one of the narratives was, as soon as he was done selling, and we were monitoring his wallets, I think I was watching you and Good Morning Crypto and all the usual suspects, and we were told as soon as that ended, XRP was going to the moon, and that didn't happen. And then there was the lawsuit, and that didn't happen, and then this, and then this, and then this.
It's always changing.
It's always changing. So my point is that, and I'm going to keep coming back to it, is other than speculation. So, like, if everyone woke up tomorrow, it's a game of musical chairs. If everyone woke up tomorrow and realized that there is no real value to XRP because it's not a stock, there's no connection to the fees or revenue, it's purely everyone's belief that it's
like a meme coin. It's like a meme coin.
And like you said, there is value in that. I'm not debating that. But what I'm saying
number one digital asset in the entire market is,
I
would argue, is a meme coin.
I'm not.
You'd argue Bitcoin's a meme coin.
Hold on. And I
you make that argument.
You could.
I
kind of would, actually. Bitcoin's kind of like a pet rock right now.
Well, hold on. Like I said, I agree with you on that point. But my point is that, does it make sense to invest in like a top 5 token with a $6 billion market cap? The risk reward, when it has little to no real value other than you're a part of a community.
It's like, where do you think it's going to go? It's going to go from 60 billion to 300 billion, like a 5-bagger? Is that what you think it's going to do? And how? Like, where's the value accrual to the coin?
Well, yeah, because structurally, right? Like, structurally, I think it's a lot of the playbook, honestly, we've already seen, and that's been playing out for such a long period of time. But, like, absolutely, like, with the amount of people stepping into the market right now and wanting to invest in top projects, go take a look at what, like, large institutions even have access to in terms of what they're able to buy and sell. Like, all of that is structured behind an asset like a Bitcoin, like an XRP. This idea that you want to reach in and like find all these small projects, it's one of the biggest things that just gets people absolutely burned in all markets. Go take a look at like the advent of like the internet. Like, were you really finding deep value by going out of like an Apple, an Amazon, a Google? No, you're being sold some fake vision that was never going to materialize by companies and teams that have already built all the significant infrastructure to allow a revolution to happen. So, like, I fundamentally believe in a very similar way, and it's not going to be every single project, but if you pick the projects, right, with the most resources, the top teams, the smartest people, the most licenses, the most regulatory capture, they're going to have a massive advantage over your 3-person team over in the Philippines who built a cool website that now everyone thinks is awesome.
But Mickle, that's not the XRP ledger, though. That's Ripple Labs. Like, how do I get a piece of Ripple Labs, man? Like, I want some of that ODL money. You know what I mean?
It's easy. If you have any money, you can just go buy it at secondary.
Yeah, but that's not XRP the coin, though. These two things are completely different.
Exactly.
That's why I think XRP is a meme coin with no value at all, except for all the people who have been hoodwinked into buying it.
Community.
Except for the $72 billion in market cap value.
Right. And those people are wrong, man. And we've seen stuff go to zero in crypto before. And I wouldn't be surprised to see.
So you think XRP is going to go to zero?
I think it's zero value. Yeah.
What I think is going to happen.
Also going to go to zero.
Well, hold on. What I think is going to happen with XRP is at some point, and this is true of a lot, 95% or more of crypto. Yeah. I think a lot of it is overvalued, and I think there's going to be a massive revaluation once there's an accepted way to value these assets. And when that happens, a lot of tokens are going to get a massive revaluation.
I actually love this point because I absolutely do believe there's going to be a revaluation. Like, we are totally on pace with this, except I totally disagree with the direction. I actually believe there's going to be a huge revaluation to the upside on a lot of the major tokens. And we've seen this through history time and time again. When Amazon was like just starting to first push revenue, when Google was first starting to push revenue, these companies are so overvalued, they don't even make profit. People didn't even have the slightest idea about how powerful these new technologies were about to be and what they were going to facilitate in the world. I believe the vast majority of people, especially from most of the conversations I have, like, don't even have the slightest idea of how powerful it is to simply be able to move value from one place to another instantaneously, settled without a single intermediary. Like, that alone is such a massive piece of value that the financial system can't function today. That's going to completely upend the entire financial infrastructure that makes up the world today. Like, that to me is going to cause a revaluation as people start to understand this stuff that is significantly higher than where we are today. In the same exact way Amazon did 1,000x's, 10,000x's, and all these different internet companies did, people just couldn't wrap their head around how powerful these new implementations were.
So let me ask you a question, Mickle. I'm curious. What is going to be that number one catalyst? Because I know at the beginning of our call, you were talking about all the macro work, and I like your macro work. What do you think the number one catalyst is going to be? Let's talk about XRP. That's going to drive the XRP coin to put in that 5-bagger, bring it up to, $5 or whatever. What's the number one catalyst there?
Yeah, I'm actually like, that's definitely a tough one, and I'd be hesitant to stake any kind
maybe a couple of them, a couple catalysts then.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing that I think would be like, that would cause it, right? I'm not saying that like this is going to be the thing that causes it, but I would say that would cause it was like, there's two very interesting avenues. One is that Ripple's recent purchase, Hidden Road, right? Now Ripple Prime. One of the things that they do really, really well is cross-margining and the capability of making mobile collateral, right? Having collateral that you can move around, and it's a brand new utility, and that's why they've actually been one of the best specialty market makers as well as prime brokers in all of the more tail-end asset space. One of the things that Hidden Road has talked about a significant amount prior to their acquisition, now even more after it, was ultimately moving post-trade settlement of assets to the XRP ledger. Now, in my opinion, that's one of the most obvious and easy facilitations of crypto because it goes to what Satoshi put in his original vision to its core of just moving and settling value. Now, this is not peer-to-peer, it's institution to institution. But that alone, in my opinion, is a huge unlock for the XRP ledger. The other thing I believe is a lot of Ripple's partners who right now are locked into Ripple's payments, ultimately moving to things like RLUSD, moving to XRP as back-end liquidity in a product like ODL. I believe as those things become more public, right? And as companies, large companies in the United States, go back to their boards and their risk assessment teams and say, hey, rather than talking about how we're not using crypto and some scary things because of not clarity, we need to now seem innovative. We need to now seem like we're embracing this technology. Let's go put out a PR that talks about this new thing we just did. We actually just saw one with Ripple, JP Morgan, and Ondo. I believe as we start to see a lot of those things, more and more people are going to be like, wait, the cryptocurrency industry has been this massive failed promised land for the longest time. Failed application after failed application after no one using this stuff off yield generation schemes, NFTs. This is cool. This is a real institution using the technology of the XRP ledger. I want to own some XRP. And I believe as that mindset comes in, you will see XRP move up to somewhere like that $5 mark.
But there's a case to be made for that, through speculation, like you've mentioned. But again, it's just, I don't see a direct connection between anything that's bullish for Ripple, that doesn't involve the XRP or XRPL, and the lack of anything real on the XRPL, and even the RWAs. There's 4 billion right now, 1 billion, a little bit over 1 billion of which is RLUSD. It's stagnant liquidity, and even if it did move, it burns a negligible amount of XRP, and just there is no real value to the XRP token other than speculative value.
But so we both agree, right? Like crypto and DLT rails move significantly faster than the traditional financial system, right?
Of course.
Oh, yeah. And you guys admitted, right? Ripple's been hyper successful in integrating not their XRP ledger products, but their products into financial institutions.
Well, not the XRP ledger products because they don't have any. They've got like
No. I mean, they've shipped, and they've got some business going, but the majority, last I looked, the majority of the revenue that is on their balance sheets.
How'd you get that? How'd you see that?
From the court case. You get a window into it through that court case document. Yeah. All the documents there.
Yeah. Okay, but those are probably a little outdated.
Well, and actually, Brad Garlinghouse did an interview that we showed on the show, and it was from his mouth, was without selling XRP that they wouldn't be.
And when was that comment?
I think it was 2025.
No, that was 2018. It was honestly, yeah. No, let me tell you right now, because I know this for a fact, and it's just because if you're a shareholder
and we could be Ripple, on that,
you actually get to look into some of these things because they share some of these metrics.
Are you a shareholder of Ripple?
What do you say?
Are you a shareholder of Ripple?
Oh, absolutely.
How did you get shares in Ripple Labs? Because that's the only thing worth anything when it comes to.
Dude, I tried on Link2. I tried to get the pre-IPO on Link2, because I was it wasn't Mickle. I was listening to like another XRP channels when I sold around the time I sold my XRP. I put a couple $1,000s into the pre-IPO because I wanted exposure to Ripple, and they ended up declaring Chapter 11, and I'm still seeing if I'm going to get any of that money back.
Like,
so, a good
shares.
Yeah, you shouldn't invest in any platforms that offer obvious securities violations. That's a pretty obvious red flag, I think. But if you go to any reputable dealer of secondhand securities, you can just buy shares. I mean, it's as simple as buying any private company.
What do they trade at?
Well, when I got it in them, they were like, I don't know, like $13 right now. The most so there's it's hard to value private markets right now in the bear market. It's like $80, $90. Ripple's bought back shares for as high as $150, $200. So ultimately, we'll see the real value of them when they IPO. But
dude, that sounds good. The Mickle, that sounds really good. I would buy shares.
I'll make you this in the same exact way. I've been exponentially right on Ripple. I guarantee you, I'm right on XRP too, and I have been. So like
being right on one thing doesn't automatically make you right on the other.
The funny thing is, no, but I have been right on XRP, right? It's been a hard thing to be wrong on. When you have an asset that outperforms 99% of the industry, it's like, and they're doing things that are like structurally in line with your thesis for how crypto is going to evolve. It's kind of like one of those things. It's like, oh, it's sort of like one of the easier, I would argue, safer bets in the entire industry.
See, this is the thing that makes me so bearish on XRP. This is more common than not. These types of comments. So they're bullish on Ripple, but can't understand the XRP tie-in.
Because I don't think there is.
Well, they don't understand the difference between XRP, the XRPL, RLUSD, and Ripple.
Well, here's the problem. Like, you have to stop. Like, it's not good to listen to dumb people talk, right? If you spend all your time listening to dumb people talk, you're just wasting your time. Like, there's extremely intelligent people, right, who are like far smarter than me, far smarter than you guys, who understand this stuff at a super, super high level and are bullish on XRP. So like, if you listen to really dumb people say dumb things, like, yes, you're not going to come out of it smarter. But if you listen to smart people say smart things, you might elevate your thesis.
So that's great.
These are the people that
want to go and listen to these people.
Well, I
don't think you're going to like... So if you take a look at some of the people behind the XRP Ledger Foundation, there's a guy by the name of Vet. There's another guy by the name of Dennis. Both of them are extremely intelligent. Vet is, I wish I could pull up his social.
Just VET.
Yeah, it should show up. His icon is like a little blue mushroom kind of guy. Yeah, just vet_XO. He's one of the smartest people, like when it comes to the XRP Ledger. He also works at the XRP Ledger Foundation.
Isn't that kind of a conflict of interest, though? Like, I'm trying to get information from a third party saying really good things about XRP.
This guy. No, but there's a lot more. If you take a look at, there's a lady who does YouTube videos by the name of Crypto Airy. She does very, very, very good content on XRP. There's a whole bunch of people. I mean, like, I don't know how many influencers you want me to just list off here, but there's really smart people who work at Ripple. There's really smart people in the community. And there's also people at the independent XRP Ledger Foundation. Vet was actually just recently joined the XRP Ledger Foundation, and he was one of the smartest people I listened to prior to him joining.
Okay. Fair, man.
Like, I'm not like, I would very much push back. So I've been a part of, like, I would say probably 3 communities that like have been like done something very similar. Like my first like investment that like really, really did really well, that there was so much pushback on and so much hate. And I love when there's pushback and hate, because like when people are delusional,
it's not hate. Not from us. There's
no, but there is. I mean, the other day, David, you called Brad Garlinghouse a dirtbag, and David Schwartz like a pedophile. Like, that's a little bit of hate.
I disagreed with that. That was totally uncalled for.
I stand by those statements.
Yeah. So that's hate. So like that, what I would call is like irrational.
So.
And like you heard the same thing about people like Elon Musk, right? Like Elon Musk is a scammer, he's a grifter, and all through that, right? It was this very smart but like misunderstood community, and a lot of the Tesla community were way too bullish, right? And a lot of them just had a big advantage on the understanding of the rest of the market. The next one after that fell into that same exact thing was Palantir. It was like, oh, it's this government spy operation, and it's just a consulting firm, and no one understood it. And it just reminds me of this XRP thing so much. It's like you talk to people who I'd argue don't understand it that well, and they have all these preconceived notions, right? They see Ripple selling, they hate that. They see some of the points that were brought up earlier, and they hate that. And I totally get it. There's pieces of it that I don't think it's wrong to dislike those things, right? But it's the counter thesis that I'm interested in. And then the same exact way as you heard these very negative headlines on someone like a Tesla and a Palantir, but then you took the time to actually dig into it, and you're like, wait a minute, this actually could be a massive advantage in terms of Ripple selling, not losing all that to VC exit liquidity and being able to build out the underlying business. Like, that's one of the biggest things that I just think people get completely wrong. They totally misunderstand the value chain and how that comes back to the XRP ledger in comparison to exiting. So like all of those things and like all the disagreements, like there's so many different sides of it, but I just see so many parallels in the XRP communities to some of these other great misunderstood companies.
I don't know, man. The XRP communities to me seem like extremely overzealous. And whenever you mention anything that isn't super bullish, they immediately go and attack you personally ad hominem. And I don't know, man. Like I just see, I see a lot of cognitive dissonance out of the XRP people for sure.
Yeah. And I totally agree. There are people absolutely who fall into that camp. And I am not going to sit here and be like, every single person is the smartest person I've ever talked to. I just want to make sure people realize, right? It's like, I mean, like, I don't think you guys would probably put me in that camp of people. Like, you probably had this conversation. You probably think, you probably think I'm decently intelligent. Yeah, so like I talk with people like really on a daily basis now who just blow me out of the water with the things they understand. Like they just like take my knowledge and it's just minuscule in comparison to the things they know. So as long as you guys are open to say, okay, yeah, there's like a lot of like people in the XRP community who do these things, whether it's nefarious, whether they're just completely uneducated, whether they believe in these grand conspiracies. Like I totally agree. I want you guys to understand there are some people who are highly, highly intelligent. I mean, we're talking about like David Schwartz, who was working on blockchain before Bitcoin was even created, was fundamental in the creation of Bitcoin, went on to then say, okay, here are the things I didn't like of what Bitcoin did, and then created one of the most successful blockchains to ever exist. So like there's extremely smart people in these communities, and I would just caution everyone, don't get detracted by some of the people who are kind of the loud front people who are more there for the narrative people.
I hear you, man. Thank you for that. Yeah. And so, I mean, look, it's been great talking with you, Mike. I mean, this has been a lot of time. We spent Mickle's given us 90 minutes of his time today, man.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I greatly appreciate this, and I love doing stuff like this because I mean, I think it brings a lot more value than echo chambers. And that's what the majority of crypto is basically just people seeking out that confirmation bias, and it's attractive. You want to feel good about your investment, so you go and find things that make you feel good. But I think it's just infinitely important that you find opposing views, things that challenge your thesis, so that it forces you. David does it again with Arrow. I'm hugely bullish on Arrow. There's a lot of flaws in it, and David has pointed them out to me. And me and him debating it has forced me to go seek out more information, so that whenever I talk to David about it, that I can be like, but this, and here's my source, and but this, and here's my source. And so it's so important as investors that you do not get locked into like a single mindset on any investment. You need to seek out opposing information. I cannot tell you how strongly that we try to push that.
Mike, now that we've had the opposing side presented to us today from Mickle, I think I'm going to buy $100 of XRP, man.
Well, guys, I want to say this. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. And also, I love the respectful debate. Like, honestly, just to be able to go back and forth with people like this is so much fun for me. Like you guys said, yeah, I can talk to a million people every single day who have the same viewpoints as me. But it's conversations like this that actually make people smarter, because people don't get smarter from listening in echo chamber. People don't get smarter from listening to one side of the story. People get smarter from listening to two intelligent people or three intelligent people go back to back, talk about these things, hash them out, and really understand both sides of it. Because my hope is that people listening to this can say, oh my God, they made so many great points. Mickle made some good points. And now let me take this back and research it on my own. And I would encourage everyone through any investment in life, you can find the best company in the world. You can find the best crypto asset in the world. That can be in the future, right? If you could see the future, an a million X. But if you don't have confidence and you don't understand it yourself, you're never going to last the journey. So develop a thesis, listen to people with contrarian views, listen to them battle. That's how we all get smarter. So guys, I really appreciate the time. It's been a blast, and I would love to do this again at some point.
Awesome. Man.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.
Awesome.
Take care.
That was great. That was a lot of fun, man. Really enjoyed that.
And nothing but respect for Mickle. I mean, because I've been trying to get somebody, bullish on XRP to come on for years now, and he's the first one that stepped up.
I think it's great.
And I think that he made some good points. I still feel like that the value connection for XRP to a lot of the stuff that he mentioned, though, it got left unanswered.
It doesn't exist. Yeah, he didn't answer that for sure. So I don't see any of the value connection between what Ripple Labs is doing and the XRP coin. It remained like, at the end of the day, even though I think that XRP number go up probably, and it's true that XRP number go up over time since 2013. Look, that is true. The problem for me is there's a difference between like, should it go up and has it gone up? And like, should it continue to go up? I don't see the connection between what Ripple Labs is doing and number go up for the XRP coin itself. Because when I look at the ledger, like the XRP ledger, there's nothing there. Like, that was another thing that I think that if he comes back on at some point, that, it would be great to drill down on that, because there are no, like, I guess the apps are all integrated into the chain, but like, where are they? Like, it looks like there's only one and it does nothing, and there's no volume there. And I don't know if anyone's ever like tried to use this stuff, but it sucks. Like, as retail, you can't use it. And then people say
that's really the bottom line, though, is just, there's no adoption of the XRP, of any merit. There's no adoption of the XRPL. And without that, the use of the token, I mean, I don't see
speculation. And I think that was the core takeaway, is that it's speculation. You're saying, hey, you know what? Everything that Ripple Labs is doing at some point in the future will make XRP, the token, go up, even if there is no direct connection. Like, you buy XRP, you are not buying Amazon stock in the 1990s. It's not a security, man. Like, you don't earn any cash flow. There's no value accrual mechanism to the XRP coin. So it's like, and there are no dApps on XRP Ledger. No one uses it for anything. It's actually kind of difficult to onboard as retail. Apparently, there are institutions on the XRP Ledger, but they do nothing on it. So I'm just thinking to myself, like, well, although I would definitely buy some XRP simply because I think that speculation will drive number go up over time. And, you know, like, it has performed well since 2013 in terms of price appreciation. Like, I don't see any real value in the XRP coin. Now, if we want to talk about Ripple Labs, the business, dude, I would buy shares in Ripple Labs, the business, if I could get a window into their financials, like a legit window into their financials. But as far as the XRP coin goes, if I want to speculate on it, the way that I think about it is almost like a meme coin with a lunatic, overly zealous community behind it. And that's what you need. Like, that's what you need.
Yeah, when it comes to, I mean, there is value there. You know, there's value in community. There's value in speculation. We're not saying that people that hold XRP aren't going to make money. What we're saying is that the claims that it's going to be this, you know, replace the traditional finance system, and that it's going to, you know, you're going to invest, you know, $100 and it's going to go from $1 to $10,000. We're just pointing out that that's ridiculous. You know,
it's completely insane.
First of all, it would have to, like, for it to go to $10,000. I think it was like $1 quadrillion or something like that. That would be the market cap of XRP if it went to $10,000. That's more than everything on the planet. You know, that's more than all real estate, all stocks, all gold, all silver, all everything.
Yeah, the math just doesn't math there.
No.
My core problem with XRP, the coin, is that I don't see any value in the XRP coin. I don't see anything on the XRP ledger. It's got a couple $2 billion of stagnant assets there that were just onboarded. You know, XRP, the ledger, over time, they haven't shipped anything. You know, like Ripple Labs, the business, has just been selling XRP in order to fund their operations. Now, Mickle made a great point about this, though. He basically said, would you rather see the centralized entity dump its coins on retail to fund its business, or would you rather see that entity use venture capitalists and then dump that way?
That's a valid point.
I think that's a valid point, man. I dislike both. Let me put it that way. I dislike both. But, like, as far as, like, how do I make money off of this thing? I got to view XRP, the coin, as just a meme coin with a rabid, lunatic, overzealous community behind it, which is a good thing. Those words that I just used, that's a really good thing for anyone who holds XRP, because I think that's the only thing.
If you're investing,
token price.
If you're investing for a speculative pump, then
but that's what it is. I think that was the core takeaway, is that there's no there, and so you're basically just speculating that at some point in the future, maybe there will be some type of something on the ledger that drives value, because there certainly isn't right now. So it's like, all right, well, if I'm going to speculate, like, I would prefer to speculate on something with a tiny or much smaller market cap. Yeah. Because, like, what's the risk reward there? Like, am I going to speculate that it's going to go from 60 or 70 billion to 300 or 400 billion? Like, and like, what's the likelihood of that?
You're like 3 or 4x your money, or you could find something that has great tokenomics, great adoption. You know, it generates fees.
Very few. There are very few projects that actually do that. But, like, if I want to compare apples to apples here, I think that XRP, the coin, is much more akin to, like, a legit meme coin, because the XRP coin, like, doesn't actually do much, and it's got this massive market cap, and it's got this rabid, lunatic, overzealous community behind it, which is exactly what a good meme coin needs. So I think about, like, XRP as a meme coin, kind of sort of in the same way that I might think about something like SPX 6900, you know, like some crazy lunatic community that's never going to sell, and they're always going to buy more. and they're going to attack anyone who dislikes the coin. But that's what these meme coins need. I think XRP is a great meme coin, man.
This attitude is going to get people wrecked. Not being able to listen to an opposing view is going to get you wrecked.
You got to bring in, look, if you have a hypothesis, like for me, my hypothesis is that XRP is a scam. And then today I listened to Mickle and he gave us some great information. I'm intentionally looking for an opinion and information that runs contrary to whatever it is that I believe. And I want to let that in so that I can make up my mind and determine what to buy, right? So even though I think Mickle made some great points today, at the end of the call, it kind of reinforced my belief that the XRPL, like there isn't a there right now. And what you're buying when you buy XRP, the coin, is it's almost like you're speculating that at some point in the future, there will be some there. But right now, I don't think there is.
Saying that a lot of these companies are being onboarded to Ripple's products and services that don't include the XRPL or XRP,
right?
And that at some point, they could start using some of those products or services that include XRP and the XRPL. But then my question is going to always go back to, what does that mean for the XRP token?
I don't think it means anything.
Gas token. And it's used even in cross-border remittances. And I was wanting to get to this, but I wanted him to cook. I wanted him to be able to get his point out. But even in the cross-border remittances or cross-border payments, it's used for like 3 to 5 seconds. So it can be so like if you're moving, US
and that's
dollars,
why no one uses it. That's the reason why no one can use it,
because of
you can't take that risk. It just doesn't make sense to take that risk.
Well, and risk aside, value accrual wise, if it's only being used for 3 to 5 seconds, it can be reused. So if you're, have US dollars and you're switching that to yen and you're using, XRP as that bridge liquidity, then for 3 to 5 seconds, it's being used, and then boom, it's back out there to be used again. So it's not like that bridge liquidity is burned. Just 0.00001 cents of XRP is burned.
Right. But the point that you made, Mike, about the 5,000 years or whatever, that's a great point to make if you want to refute what people say about XRP being deflationary. Like, I guess technically it is deflationary.
It's actually over 7,000 years. I actually did the math, because
I know,
there's 100 billion tokens, and if a gas fee is 0.00001, and you operate at max TPS or transactions per second, 24/7, 365, it would take over 7,000 years to burn through fees. Just 10% of the XRP supply.
Again, it comes down to speculation. And if you believe that there's value in speculation on these digital assets, the vast majority of which go down only, okay, more power to you, man. Like for me, at least if I buy XRP, and Mike, we already agreed that we're going to buy XRP for the business.
That's right. The $100 from Max.
That's what we're going to do, bro. We're totally buying it with that. We're going to plaster the company portfolio right up there on the website, man. So like
$100 worth of XRP. You heard it here first,
bro. But like the thing is, I'm buying XRP not because I believe in any of the bullshit narratives. I think they're all false. I'm buying it because I believe it's a meme coin with a rabid, overzealous, lunatic army behind it, and I think that's what you need.
And here's an example. Here's an example.
See, this just kind of proves my point, man. Like,
I want people like you, Port. You know what? We want you to succeed.
I want you to win, bro.
I want you to get rich and your family to be rich and you to be happy and successful.
Me too. So, let's see here, man. I think, Mike, we've got a call in a couple of minutes here that is going to be a lot of fun. We should probably head out the door here.
Yeah. So if you want to join us, we're going to be doing hosting spaces on X for Canton News. And again, we do not get paid in any way to talk positively or negatively about any project. We have never and will never accept payment for interviews, for anything. We are a very different channel here. It is actually against the law for us to say that and then take money. So the only way that we make money here is off of YouTube, viewers, and off of our products and services that we offer on our website, most of which are free. So we're terrible businessmen. But if you want to check that out, this is our website, thenode.pro. If you want to learn about DeFi and crypto, it costs you nothing. This is all free. You can come in here and learn about looping and advanced strategies in DeFi, hot and cold wallets. Doesn't matter what your experience level is. If you want to join our community, again, 100% free. And if you are thinking about investing in a certain project, we do 10 deep dives a week and store them here. Again, 100% free. You can come through here, and each one of these, you get.
I love what Crispy just said in the chat. I've been reading the stuff in the chat, bro, and it is just
I know.
It literally puts a smile on my face because like everything that we've been saying about the rabid lunatic community behind the XRP meme coin, it's so true. But that's what you need for a meme coin to work. You need that, so it's a good thing for XRP over time, probably.
But something that that's important that you all know is that, each one of these deep dives, you get, a video, you can read through all of the all of the information.
Yeah, but dude, but Mike, you're talking about reading. The XRP, they can't read. They didn't lear. They didn't lear how to read.
We got to get through this because we got to go. But there's a slide deck with a bunch of information. There's an infographic. This is the elevator pitch for each of these projects that we've done deep dives. And at the very bottom, you can find the source document. Scroll to the bottom of the source document, and you will not see this in other places. We cite all of our sources. Everything that we did to build deep dives, Ripple and XRP included, we cite our sources. And most of them come from Ripple's own website and interviews with Brad Garlinghouse and primary sources. So this isn't stuff that we make up. This is built off of primary sources. If you've been to college, you understand you are required to cite your sources. This is not opinion. All the stuff that we talk about here is based off of facts. So do with that as you will. But we appreciate all of you being here. We welcome all of you to come back. And we're going to give the good, the bad, and the ugly about all projects here. It's stuff that we're bullish on, Aerodrome, Canton, Hype, all of these that we talk very positively about. We're going to point out the negatives about them as well. Again, we aren't paid or incentivized to have an opinion either way. We are simply here to educate, not influence. And if you want to invest in XRP and hang out with us, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. It's your money. Do what you want with it. So with that, we appreciate you all and hope to see you again. Tonight we have the red pill.
Oh, and, look, they what college? I went to Berkeley, bro. And then he's like, but you can't read. Yeah, I make software for a living now. It's like, dude, I love these guys. These guys are great. Hey, you know what they could do? They could sign up for the private coaching at the node.pro. Yeah. I just finalized that offer. So maybe if they want to sign up and work with me privately, man, they could lear some things.
And Platypus, David, for the past almost 6 years, and even before that, but for the past 6 years, has made his entire living in crypto and DeFi, investing in DeFi. So you're not going to find somebody that's more knowledgeable about this space and how to make a living in it.
Really do appreciate everyone who joined the call, though, man. Really, really do. Check out the node.pro, our official website, and like, share, and subscribe. And thank you. Thank you for showing up.
Till next time, Veteran Crypto out.
Peace.